Hello everybody, my name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today we're going to be talking about Jen Hatmaker, who's not a name we really talk about a whole lot because she is, truth be told, low-hanging fruit. However, there is a concept that I want to highlight, kind of a concept that I've come up with. I've made jokes about it, memes about it, sort of, or at least I've passed along memes about it, and it's called the liberal dilemma. And the liberal dilemma is, I'm pregnant. Do I abort my child or do I groom my child? That is the liberal dilemma, and that is what Jen Hatmaker perfectly encapsulates. So she wrote this article in response to the Alito draft, and yes, we're doing another video about the Alito draft and evangelical response to it. So buckle up. And this is her May 4th article, which is pretty fresh, titled My Thoughts on the Roe versus Wade Reversal. And it's very melodramatic, if I do say so myself. So let's just read it, debunk it, and then circle back, as Jen Psaki would say, to the concept of the liberal dilemma and how Jen Hatmaker perfectly articulates and embodies this concept. I've sat quietly with the leaked news of Roe v. Wade reversal for 2 days, spent time in panicked group text with my closest women colleagues, listened and watched, and tried to get centered before anything to my community, because my first reaction to something this big is generally emotional and half-baked. As in, she's on drugs? Anyway, there are a dozen terrifying implications here. The destabilization and politicalization of the Supreme Court, which is a nonsensical take. Are we going to act like Supreme Court justices aren't politicians here? That's, again, nonsense. They've always been politicians. Overturning settled law with double precedence stands out. But what I want to focus on is the immediate, disproportionate harm this will cause women. What about all the dudes that will have to pay child support? What about those guys? Anyway, and not just emotional harm, physical and legal harm. You know, when she said disproportionate harm, my first guess would have been physical, not legal or emotional. But whatever, this is Jen Hatmaker we're talking about. Again, low-hanging fruit on the pro-abortion train. As unambiguously proven by data, making abortion illegal doesn't lower abortion rates. It simply makes them more dangerous. Again, this is nonsense. Where's the data that supports this? It doesn't exist here. It doesn't exist here. I mean, coat hangers were largely a myth. Not like it never happened, but let's be real about how overplayed it is. Moreover, if we say we have 500,000 abortions a year, if abortion is illegal, how many of those 500,000 remain? Because let's be real, this is a convenience culture. The more convenient abortion is, the more abortions will happen. When the Texas abortion law went into effect, they saw a drastic drop in the amount of abortions that happened in that state. Therefore, we can conclude that banning abortion actually does reduce the rates. We didn't see any coat hanger incidents there because these people are all talk, no walk. And next she's going to say 1 in 4 women have had an abortion. So dangerous for your daughters, your sisters, your best friends, your colleagues, your neighbors, your church friends, really? And of course, those of you reading with your quiet, private, personal history here, as it should be yourself. It will be disproportionately dangerous for women of color and under-resourced women, as all social ills are. It's just rough being a woman of color these days. So again, the 1 in 4 thing is a complete myth, because it basically relies on repeat offenders skewing the numbers to make it seem like more women have abortions than they actually do. When you have someone that has 3 abortions by the time they're 30, that raises the average abortion each woman has had because they're having 3 people's worth of abortions if everyone's entitled to 1 mulligan, which they're not under God's law, by the way. Abortion is a choice women make for endless personal reasons. Really? Endless? Endless? Really, there's only a few. And really, it's just, I don't want it. That's the number one reason I don't want the child. Number one. How many more reasons are there than that? I don't want it. Let's see. Abortion is a choice women make for endless personal reasons, including the health of the mother, the health of the baby. That's just laughable. Rape, incest, which has no place. Incest has no place in the abortion discussion. It's just eugenics. Call it what it is, eugenics. Viability, financial instability, a dangerous home environment, lack of help, and of course, reasons that are theirs alone as are their bodies. So elective, which is most of the ones she mentioned were all completely elective. This is intensely personal and private. And women deserve agency and choice, not only with their bodies, but over the decision to parent for the rest of their lives. Anti-abortion advocates have every right to their convictions, but those convictions should only apply to their bodies, their families, and their futures. Then they don't have every right to their convictions. That's a stupid argument. You have every right to believe what you believe, but you cannot act on those beliefs. Is basically what she's saying there. And that's not how public policy works. That's not how public policy works. So, again, this is not a very long article, but it is, again, another bad argument presented by the pro-abortion liberal, which is a euphemism for apostate, Christian crowd. Worth noting that the legislative opponents to Roe are largely participating in political theater because of if this rabid energy was genuine, if it had any integrity, it would come baked with the fiercest and staunchest advocacy for free birth control, comprehensive sex education, maternal health care, paid maternity leave, subsidized child care, affordable housing, marriage counseling, and family support systems, guaranteed food security, victims' rights for all rape and incest survivors forced to carry their abuser's baby. Wouldn't that incest be rape then? And she's being redundant. Can you tell I've not read this before? Subsidized medical care for all women forced to carry a baby to the detriment of their own health or that of their baby, life insurance for families whose mother died in forced childbirth, and every conceivable support for a mother, baby, and family from birth until forever. How about this? How about the guy has to pay child support or be there for his kid? He has to man up and be a father since he sired a child. How about that? We can execute the rapist, but otherwise, you gotta sire your own child. How about that? That's a compromise. That's my final offer. Because this is ridiculous. Why should we, the people advocating for free birth control are really the people that aren't having any sex. Let's be real. Because there's a bunch of land whales out there advocating for free birth control for the sex we know they're not having. Also, there's something to say about birth control and how it actually doesn't help a woman's libido out. So, doubly supporting my point that supporting free birth control is a red herring. That's a red herring argument because these people the people advocating free birth control aren't the ones having sex. And then sex education is, basically grooming. Back to the liberal dilemma that we talked about in the beginning. We're going to touch up on that in the end, of course. And a bunch of these other things, it's like, okay, you already have Medicaid expansion, in which case in all 50 states, It's way easier to get Medicaid if you're pregnant. That's just a fact. It doesn't matter whether it's a Medicaid expansion state or not. Other than that, we have a welfare state. How much more do we need to add to a welfare state, which shouldn't exist, by the way? Adoption agencies would be overflowing with advocates prepared to raise these children. This would make sense alongside the fanatical crusade against reproductive rights because everyone is so concerned about the babies. But of course, because the babies are innocent. The woman killing her child isn't innocent. In the famous words of Britney Spears, she's not that innocent. But of course, that is not at all what we see, because it is not at all true. Abortion became a convenient lightning rod for power and political capital, and it has been used to great effect ever since. Its reversal will not course correct the moral climate of our nation. Of course, that's wrong. It will simply mean more women are permanently injured, dead, or imprisoned due to the destruction of their families and lives. That's all. Really? Really? How about more women will be born? How about that? Are we going to do a net calculation here? At all? A net calculation. Is that too much to ask? Let's say there's, again, 500,000 abortions every year. Let's assume that 250,000 of those 500,000 are girls, or maybe it'd be something like 240,000 because you might have that feminist out there that doesn't want a boy. I think I remember seeing that article years ago. So let's say that's the case. That's still more women. That's probably, again, the statistics don't line up with her claims. Even if we just theorize and game theory this out, it doesn't work. Her claims are nonsensical. But of course, the best pro-abortion argument would probably be eugenics, as we discussed in the stream last week, because they're all bad. But if you just Margaret Sanger eugenics this, which is probably why the pro-abortion movement was so successful under Margaret Sanger in her time, because she probably made the best argument, but because you had a society that didn't value black people as much. Let's be real. But since we don't exactly have the same racism that we had back then, don't expect the Margaret Sanger arguments to be successful these days. Because, Darwinism and, again, the eugenics component of Darwinism isn't as popular, despite the fact that many people accept without evidence that Darwinian evolution is true. But I'm digressing. It will mean girls and women will only have unsafe, illegal, and dangerous options they will choose. I don't care. I just don't. And as a reminder, those girls and women are our daughters, our sisters, our best friends, our colleagues, our neighbors, our church friends, and ourselves. They're not really good church friends if they're committing abortion. Women deserve agency over their own bodies and their own futures. The overturning of Roe is a shocking, unprecedented repeal of women's rights, and it will not be the end. Although the leaked opinion cites an absence of constitutional mention of abortion as its key justification, we currently enjoy numerous civil and human rights not explicitly stated in the Constitution, like what? So be prepared to see those on the chopping block of democracy too. Again, we're not really a democracy, but of course that's one of the worst lies that civics have ever taught American students, is that we're a democracy. We're not. This precedence is the key that will turn the lock to a catastrophic loss of freedoms. This one may not come for you, but the next one, right? I can live with that. I can live with. What freedoms are we going to lose? Obergefell, which also doesn't have, which, if you use the language of Alito's opinion, it could be used to undo the Obergefell decision, which also has no constitutional standing, has no common law standing as well, because common law did not recognize man and man but sex unions as marriage. So likewise, abortion was not considered a right under common law. So Common law is the building block of American legal system. And common law was incredibly influential in the Alito draft opinion. So, I have such respect for convictions and personal beliefs, and I understand them to be nuanced and complex. I don't believe the pro-life people are universally anything. Folks come to that conviction for a million different reasons, which they have a right to. But reproductive rights belong to women individually, and they keep us safer. No, not the women that are aborted, they don't. Healthier and autonomous. Again, committing abortion is not exactly good for you. Like, that has side effects. This reversal will cause monumental physical and social harm to women, and as a way to love our sisters, we will use our voices, our votes, and our giant arms to love for one another. So that's Jen Hatmaker and her pro-abortion cringe take. Again, very cringe take, not surprising. Again, pro-abortion arguments, especially these days, are really bad. At the end of the day, it all comes down to, I just want to be able to kill this baby. That's what it comes down to. Always has. Everything else is a red herring. Like a lot of her arguments about, these certain situations, it's a red herring because she doesn't care about those situations. Her argument's not dependent on those situations. It's all a fallacy. It's all a fraud. So now let's go back to the Jen Hatmaker and the liberal dilemma, because clearly she's super pro-abortion. She's also pro-homosexuality, by the way. And I wrote an article, I believe the last time I wrote an article about Jen Hatmaker was when I talked about how her daughter was a lesbian, and I basically argued that she probably raised her child to be that way. Because let's face it, it's a social contagion. They've done studies on this, and basically like transgenderism is like the biggest social contagion, where they found that it was a study from a while ago, back when Tumblr was a thing. Basically, girls would become non-binary or trans or whatever when their friends got into it first. So it would be a social contagion, or what they were reading on Tumblr. And now, it's outdated because now it'd be TikTok. I mean, libs of TikTok, we see a glimpse of what goes on there. We see a glimpse. But, that's grooming behavior. So the liberal dilemma is, do I abort my child or do I groom my child? And Jen Hatmaker is the embodiment of that. It's sad, pathetic, worthy of ridicule. And that's what I wanted to highlight, because, again, all pro-abortion arguments really suck because it's not foundationally found that a fetus isn't a human life. And if it is a human life, then that would make you a murderer. Let's be real. So, it's not like the pro-abortionist believes in a soul, so they can't really use an ensoulment argument to kind of get around that. Now, can they? So, that's really all I got to say about that. My name's Ray. If you like this kind of content, also subscribe to the channel. If you really like this kind of content, hit up evangelicaldarkweb.org/join Patreon-like system there, and you can support me that way as well. Have a blessed day, and I'll catch you on the next one.